Hello again. Okay, I'm not going to try to upset the apple cart or you know upset people or anything, but it just kind of dawned on me what's messing up the educational system, and that's the. I mean, we always knew it was leftist ideology in the educational system that's messing people up, but this is absurd. This is to the point of ridiculous. This is really absurd. So I was listening to this podcast on YouTube from Lawrence Krauss. I figured, hey, he has some wacky ideas, but he knows a little bit of science and cosmology and physics and stuff like that. So I'm listening away. He's talking to Noam Chomsky, who's also a educator, physicist, or whatever he is, teacher. And he's talking. They're talking. They're getting everything around. They're talking about Trump, how he's unintentionally doing a lot of good things, and but he's a real menace and danger. He's doing everything right, but he's a real menace and a danger to society. And they're trying to get people not to vote for him and stuff. So they're talking away, misinformed, misinformation here and there, left and right, all over the place, right? So much so that I can't even begin to address everything they're saying that's all wrong. But anyway, they're misinformed and misled anyways because they believe in evolution to begin with. So that right there is a big thing. But then they started talking about Brazil. Started talking about South America. And Noam Chomsky said that or Lawrence said that he's married to a Brazilian. And the Brazilian wanted him to talk about, his Brazilian wife wanted him to talk about Brazil. So he starts talking about Brazil and how good Lula was and how everybody was out to get him and they impeached Dilma and because they made up a whole bunch of stories about Dilma. Dilma happens to be they call her an analphabet in Portuguese, uneducated, can't even speak Portuguese right. She was one of the terrorists that tried to overthrow Brazil together with Lula. Lula and Dilma were both terrorists setting off bombs. That's why they were in prison. And he's there giving them praises and all the banquets, all this and that. He didn't even mention the car wash scandal in Brazil. How they were laundering money through a car wash and all kind of crazy things. How money's disappearing. They're finding suitcases of money floating around in the bay, and they're trying to figure out who had the money, who threw it away, and stuff like that. All kind of crazy things. And they're supporting communist countries all over the world. Instead of rebuilding Brazil, they're building dams, airports, infrastructure in up and coming communist countries around the world, including Venezuela. And Venezuela just took over the petroleum that Brazil owned in Venezuela. A whole bunch of stuff like you can go on. And I'm American, and I shouldn't even know about this stuff. I just happen to know about it. Half this stuff. I'm just scraping the surface of what it is. But here is this American educator. We wonder why our educational system's all messed up, and why Lawrence Krauss is as messed up as he is because he's listening to this guy. This guy here, he's praising the communists that tried to overthrow the Brazilian government way back in the day when I was a kid, or before I even got there, or whenever it was. So if that's what he's teaching to the kids, no wonder the kids are messed up in school. No wonder they're all upset about everything because they're saying that Lula was a good guy and he was misrepresented and all this stuff. And he talks about, oh, it was a soft coup to overthrow Dilma, to impeach Dilma. No, they are the ones that had the coup and were overthrowing the Brazilian government and using all the resources of the Brazilian government, including the petroleum companies and everything, to support upstart communist countries around the world. And if you know anything about Brazil, they had a thriving economy back, I don't know what, 10 years ago, whenever it was. Brazil was like the powerhouse economy. Brazil was the place to invest. It was, strong and everything and all the stuff. And everybody saying, yeah, Brazil, it's a good place to invest and everything. And then the thing tanked because of these characters that were, fooled the people into thinking that they were going to do some good. Of course, they should have known better because they're the terrorists that destroyed the country or that wanted to overtake the country in the first place. It's the same thing with the Democrats where we are. I could have told you that the Democrats would have destroyed everything, the whole legal system, the justice system, and everything, like they did. Only they exceeded my expectations, far beyond my expectations of what they were going to do. And these people, I'm telling you, they just, everything to the contrary, everything wrong, everything backwards. And you wonder why the educational system's so messed up. It's because of people like this that laud communism, the glories of communism in South America. The same communism that destroyed Venezuela and Cuba and almost destroyed Brazil when I was there. But the military took over before they could take power, and they threw them in Brazil. They threw Lula and Dilma into prison, and then now they came out and they almost destroyed Brazil again. And the Brazilian people didn't put up with it. The Brazilian people had enough of it, and they elected Bolsonaro, Jair Bolsonaro, who is known as the Brazilian Trump.